Welcome to Once You Know podcast. I'm your host, Amy Shaw, a business builder and a spiritual mentor. This is where alignment meets action and where we explore the real shifts, identity changes, and conversations that come with true growth. Because once you know, you know. So welcome back to Once You Know. Today is a podcast I'm not even sure if I'm going to post. However, I think it's really important. I created this platform to be able to address everything that goes through the stages of transformation or spirituality. As I always say, I don't believe in hierarchy, and I try not to teach from a pedestal or from a place of having learnt it all. I try and keep it as expensive as I can. I try and explain things in real time as they happen. So obviously I'm a lead by example soul. I am deeply honoured to be able to support the people that I do, but I don't believe I'm healed or the top layer of where we're all trying to ascend to. So it is an inside job, and I always try and lead from my own lived experience. So I guess that's where it is this one is really big for me at the moment. It's a part of where I'm sitting in terms of my own journey, and I try and be as raw and transparent as I can through all the stages, the big wins, the alignment, the manifestation, the opportunities that come, but also the parts that do kind of trip you up and are really hard, because I feel like those are just as important, if not more important, to discuss those really openly. This is a space where we are open and transparent. I will share my own stories. I will share other people's stories alongside them. So it's a real opportunity to kind of sit along the harder bits as well as the beautiful, expansive, amazing bits. So this one that I really want to cover in today is around the cost of growth. I wrote a few notes down as well, because obviously I'm just doing it on my own, but I really just want to live these experiences as they come through. But this one's a really big one, and I think this is one that we don't talk about enough. As you are starting out your journey, people celebrate you, people are excited for you. No one knows really which direction it's going to go, but as you go further up the ladder, or you get more opportunities, or you stand further in your truth and your light, that is where it becomes really difficult, because it triggers other parts of other people. It illuminates some of the shadows within them. So it's about really stepping back from whatever it is and looking at the lesson with gratitude. So that is where I always try and sit. Yes, some things can be hurtful, and there's different experiences that we have to learn from it. But it's about taking the emotion out as much as you can and really sitting in the hard part of what is the lesson? What am I here to learn? How am I going to anchor in my truth more? I've moved past the point of defending myself. I guess it's kind of like I sit very deeply in the work that I do, and I know how I operate from that level. But there's obviously levels that happen through your awakening or through your deeper connection with yourself, which is ultimately what spirituality is. It is remembering your own gifts, your own power. It is sitting in your truth and being able to honor that no matter what happens around you, you can still anchor in that level of love for yourself, those level of boundaries that protect your peace, and also that you can anchor in your mission and feel safe and anchored with your team and the bigger source to be able to continue to go forward. So this is a really brutal one, because it's almost part of the lesson is before you get impact or before you are given a bigger stage, you will be tested. So you will be tested into how you will react when those things happen, because as we know, as we get bigger and bigger, or we step further into our light, we actually become more of a target. And I remember people at the start of my spiritual journey saying things like that, and I was like, what do you mean? You know, you're in the light, you're transforming people, you lead from the front, and you're helping humanity. So you always think, I guess, it's never going to be a conversation that you actually have to honor yourself. But what I've realized is the more opportunities you get, the more you speak online, the more transparent you become. Unfortunately, you then attract more of illuminating people's wounds, which will then project some of the things onto you. So it is just about really trying to unpack that. And I'm trying to do that live with you as I go through it. So I guess it's a really important one to kind of do it. And I chucked down a couple of points, which I make sure that when I get through this process, I go and sit with myself. I don't start talking about the situation. I very much anchor in the version that I want to show up as. So I keep embodying, I keep being like, okay, well, how can you react? And I kind of almost peel it all the way back to myself again, like, what is your core mission? Who are you on this earth? What do you want to do? How can I have empathy for the situation, but not hold too much of it myself? So I think that's a really important one, because we end up, when these things happen, especially when they do hurt, you take it personally. So you're like, oh, this really hurts, or this made me feel this kind of way. But what I've always tried to do, once the sadness goes, or once the hurt goes a little bit, I sit with it and go, okay, well, what is the lesson in this for me? And I have to allow that whoever else is in that environment or showing in that way, they can actually release that themselves, and I'm not going to take that on. It's not my job to transmute it. It is definitely my job to hold the space, but more importantly, it is holding my own boundaries and my truth, and being like, it's actually okay that people are going to feel like that. But actually remove the energy from it, as opposed to trying to feed it or trying to understand it too deeply. Because what I've realized along this is, you cannot create someone else's journey. You can guide them, you can give them the tools as much as they can, but they have to remember their own inner voice, their own reason of why they're showing up the way that they do. You cannot physically change someone. I know in all of the work that I do, I'm so grateful for the clients that I have and that I work through. But it is about allowing them the space to remember who they are, what their core essence is, what their values are, how they want to show up, what legacy they want to create in the world, and how they want to be remembered. So that is always the work that I do alongside that. So I kind of jotted down a couple of points, because as we know, I've got ADHD. So it is very easy for me to go off topic, and I wanted to keep it really kind of clean and, really transparent, I guess, today, and try and keep to the point as much as I can, as opposed to not going off. But I guess there's levels that come for me, and I know for a lot of other people, as you come along this growth section, there becomes a layer of embarrassment. So again, for me, coming outside of being, I guess, almost adored in fashion and business, I was always the one achieving, but I was doing it in a way that the world felt safe. So I was always validated, I was always celebrated, I was always put on a pedestal. But as soon as I started to speak my own truth about my spirituality and wanting more and wanting a deeper connection with myself, allowing myself to become more vulnerable, more emotional, all of the things that we are trained that we shouldn't do in this lifetime. So with that comes a real level of embarrassment of being spiritual, of stepping outside of it, of how people perceive you, of being able to still anchor in that truth when it's different, when people aren't as accepting as that. So there's this real level that comes with it, which is obviously a very low vibration frequency. So when you are sitting in that frequency of embarrassment, shame, those are one of the lowest vibrations that you can sit at. So it's very hard to sit in that environment or that energy field and then keep doing the work that you do, keep showing up for your clients the way that you do. So that one was probably one of the really big first ones for you. But what I realized is, for me to be able to stand forward and say the things that I wanted to say and communicate the things that have changed my life, I had to go through all of those levels of stop worrying about what people think. Not everyone's going to understand it, and that's totally fine. And that's within our industry, but within every other industry as well. So we kind of get to this point where you honor your own journey enough, and your happiness and your peace and your boundaries, to be like, actually, my life did look like this and now it looks like this, and I'm actually okay with it. And you will have people obviously starting to make comments. You will have people talking behind your back. There's different elements of other people's fear playing out. So people will generally talk about it and say, oh, she's lost it, or it's gone weird, or don't go too far. There's a lot of programming that comes around it. But I guess for me, that was just another test to be like, cool, are you here to do the work that you want to do and help the people that you do? Or are you worried about showing up in a different environment of how people will feel? So The embarrassment, no one talks about. And I think for me, I tried to hide it. I tried to mask it. I was like, no, it's fine. Like, I'm the spiritual one. I'd almost make a bit of a joke out of it. But actually, it was one of the biggest transformations in my life. It was the thing that genuinely made me a better person. It made me want to do more. It made me show up for my children better. It made me understand and love myself, which through all of the validation that I was seeking through my career and all of my achievements, I never managed to find that level of love and peace for myself. So that was one of my main soul goals in this lifetime, was to love myself, to honor myself. And that is almost taboo here, or it is not accepted. You as a female shouldn't love yourself because it's it's overly confident, or it's cocky, or it's thirst trap, or whatever those things are. But actually, once you get to that level where you're like, I've worked really hard to have this relationship with myself, I'm going to continue to honor it. Then it almost tests you through this section where before God promotes you, or source, or whoever you work with, it actually exposes what still needs pruning. So the way I see that is it exposes all the parts of me, all of my insecurities, all of the parts that I'm not honoring deeply enough, so that I can actually address them. So I can sit with those emotions and say, okay, well, actually, I feel really embarrassed. I feel shameful. Why am I feeling shameful? When I'm showing up as a better person and I treat people better, I'm kinder, my rage is gone, the anger is gone, the mean kind of comments, which I dressed up as humor, is gone. There was all these levels of things that I was doing to seek validation and to fit in along that way. So actually in that love journey with myself and starting to understand my team and how I work and all of those things, I actually became a much nicer person, not only to the people around me, but also to myself. So I think that one's really, really important. And then also, what I noticed is before you are given a platform, before you are given almost like a community or a platform to be able to speak your truth, you get every single part of your insecurities are now brought to the surface, because you actually have to address those. So when you walk into, when I do stage work, when I'm, invited to speak on stage, invited on podcasts, I speak from a place of authenticity. I don't overly research. I don't do all the work beforehand. That probably annoys people, but I show up exactly as I am, at whatever version I am at that time in my healing journey. So I think as we are building influence, which I don't think is even the right word, but as we build a platform where we can speak honestly about it and allow other people to make their decisions, that for me is whether you tap into it and you are all the way in and you want to understand your soul and your past lives and all of those things, and you wouldn't work with your teams and your guide in the universe. That is one level. Or if you're just wanting to understand deeper yourself, how you show up in relationships, why you are triggered by certain people or certain environments in your life. So there's so many different levels of understanding and getting to know yourself and unpacking all the layers of yourself to become who you came to be, because it is really, really draining, and it takes a lot of energy to show up as someone constantly that is not actually your authentic self. It takes so much energy that you could be pouring into your purpose, into your community, into your relationships, into your children, when you are physically resisting, I guess, the part of yourself that you are. So I think that's a really big one, that all of your insecurities, before you get to that platform or before you get that influence to be able to help other people, you are tested with it. So instead of ignoring those things or saying, oh, well, she's like this and that's the opportunities that they've got and that looks like luck and all of those things, those are the insecurities. So those are the time where you can pull those up and say, well, actually, I deeply honor that version of myself, because in some levels of me, that's how I feel. So instead of brushing them away and starting to look around at who else is letting me down or whatever's happening, I have to go back in with myself, anchor my truth, and build that relationship back up with myself again. So those insecurities end up allowing you to step further into your power, further in what you're meant to be, whether it's in the spiritual world, whether it's as a mother, as a wife, all of those sorts of things. It's not, we don't have to do the work to be a Reiki master or a healer or working in the breathwork space. We physically can enter those things into our life as we have for thousands of years before, and actually start to anchor in, I guess, the version of us that wants to show up or who we are. And we have to almost fake it till we make it, until we become that version. So also, before you get to that impact, what I've noticed is that he will well, he, she, source, whoever it is, the universe, your guides, your higher self, whoever you work with, it will test your motives. So are you coming from a place of ego? Are you coming from a place of greed? Is your impact related to dollar signs? Is your impact related to the number on Instagram or how many events you speak at? So for me, if I'm going to be honest, at the start, it felt good. I was like, oh my God, amazing. People want to hear what I've got to say. But I had to have a lot of ego deaths through that to be like, okay, I've got to keep showing up authentically. I've got to keep showing up as myself, and I've got to keep refining my message so that it's not swayed by external validation, because my inner child and my nervous system still has those remainders of wanting to be seen, heard, respected, especially as you step into your spiritual truth of whatever that looks like. You are then discredited against your business, of how you run things. It's woo-woo, it's not normal, it's left field, it is, all of those things. And for the people that knew every other version of you, it doesn't quite make sense. But I'm actually still the same version of me. But so many times I wanted to crawl back in and go, actually, it was easier in some ways to be back that version. But then I anchor in my truth again. I'm like, I'm so deeply happy. The community that I do find that do love me are so deeply nourishing, and the relationships I'm calling in and how I now interact with my children. Like, I'm like, I actually would never go back again. But there is those pulls there that happen that is almost like testing your nervous system. It's testing your own internal love for yourself to be like, are you going to slip back into it, or are you going to continue to move forward and make impact in this world and raise your children in a different way and call in a relationship that is fulfilling every part that you could ever imagine and grow in parallel with someone to create a life of magic, which again, we're told is not possible. So yeah, those ones are really, really big. And this next one, when you think you're being attacked, we're being prepared. So if you are in a victim state, or you are starting to make impact and all of a sudden you are feeling attacked in some way, it is just the universe starting to protect your skin, your frequency and your capacity that you can hold to expand. So it feels really brutal in your 3D or in your humanness, because especially as females, we have all of these emotions that we hold on to. So, well, not that we hold on to, that floods through our bodies. We're full of hormones. And, as we hit over, a certain age after your 40s, then there's all these different emotions that start coming up. So it's actually no victim. It's no attack. It is literally the universe or your team starting to get you ready for that next chapter. So it's about, again, slowing down, taking things away from feeling personal as much as they can. You can cry, you can feel upset, you can do that. But again, then starting to cut off that energy, because again, it just becomes that loop of lost energy or leaky energy that starts to, I guess, take away from the things that you could be doing that is amplifying the world or yourself or your life or your community. So yeah, that was a really big one for me. Then there comes the loss. And I know I've spoken about this, but I guess for me, I really wanted to dive a little bit deeper. I really don't want any of the conversations that we have with clients through here or with beautiful visionaries from our industry or myself to be too surface. So the process feels like a loss. There is a deep loss that you go through because you have no longer got the same identity that you used to have. So with that, unfortunately, things go with it. And it is really hard. It feels really sad. And you actually really mourn every single part of that. It's not like you're like, see you later, life. I'm do this now and I do that and I love myself. You grieve every single stage. I grieved every single identity of myself, every single person that was in the journey that I had, which I've always said I deeply honor every journey I had, the travel, the partying, the lifestyle, like all of those sorts of things. But then I chose that I was like, I really deeply love my body enough now that I'm going to treat it with respect for the rest of the time. And I really want my community to be deeper, and I want my work to be better, and I want to show up better. So all of those things, but you still grieve the loss, and that is okay. And even now, still at this level, I still grieve parts of my life that are no longer in it. So it doesn't just go away. There is like this real level that happens where you've got to keep moving through the loss and acknowledge the fact that it is sad. There's, levels of your inner child that's really upset about it. There's friendships that aren't as close as they were. You still have the same love for them, but you don't have as much in common, or, your time is taken elsewhere. So there's all these levels that have happen with the loss of the identity of you. There's also a loss of comfort. So when you are living in, a frequency where you are more disconnected to energy or yourself, and the deep love that you have for yourself, it's comfortable. You're fine to binge on Netflix, and you can eat whatever, and you can treat your body and party and do that. You don't really think about it too deeply. So there's a real loss of comfort, because now I hold myself to such a high level of boundaries, respect, and it does take a lot of work, because sometimes they think, oh, I'd love to do this or do that, but I'm like, you know what, I've got these commitments, or I need to fly away and do this, or this is happening. And then I obviously make sure that I'm 100% present for my children, because that's one of my most important values that I have. So I have to do it outside of the hours that they are awake, and then I'm also building other businesses. So there's a real level of comfort that goes with it. The comfort of being invisible in society, the comfort of being celebrated in a society. There's a comfort of being safe because you are not your authentic self. So I didn't mind as much when people used to dog me out, but when they do it now, I'm like, oh, I get so upset, because I'm the purest version of myself now. So all of a sudden, when these things come up, you actually are really, really betrayed, and it hurts a lot deeper. So the comfort of being able just to bounce through life with not those sort of like deep emotions, which I'd suppressed for a very long time. I mean, most people would laugh at me now that used to be in my old life. People would be like, oh God, Amy's not a cuddler, or Amy won't touch you, or, I didn't go too deep, but, I use laughter and deflection as a way of keeping myself safe, because then I didn't have to open up. So there's all these levels of comfort that we don't talk about, that are removed when you start to do this work, because you're like, wow, I've got to hold my boundary here, I've got to hold my power, because you've worked so hard to get that point that all of a sudden you have to uphold it, and you have a different standard in your life that is more work. You have to work harder at being this version of yourself for quite a long time until it fully anchors in. The other thing is obviously a loss of ego. So you don't get to the level of the career, for example, if I use myself as an example, you do not get to the level of the career that you have without ego. And I deeply honor my ego. I actually love my ego. It's kept me safe through a lot of things. But now I have a really strong relationship with it, in terms of being like, am I coming from a place of ego? Am I coming from a place of purpose? Am I coming from kindness? Am I looking at the situation correctly? So I have had so many ego deaths, and it used to be quite a big process. I used to sit through the ego death and be like, I would be victimized, and I would be like, it's everyone else's fault. And I was looking for any sort of scapegoat, because my nervous system and my ego was like, no, we're not wrong, So it's that unpeeling of your ego that will allow you to keep stepping into a better version of yourself. And ultimately, that is spirituality. It is not some magical thing. It is showing up better. It's leaving a deeper legacy. It's creating a new way for our children, but having a more fulfilled life. So when we leave at the end, we're like, oh my gosh, like I did everything. I felt everything. I was deeply present in the life that I was gifted, because not everyone lives till a long age. People lose their life at different stages. So it is such a gift to be able to show up every single day and go, I lived fully. I took every risk. That is what my heart wanted to do, and I did it. That is what I felt, so I did it. There's such liberation that comes with it. But again, it's making sure as your influence rises and as you start to build a platform, it is for the right reasons. My reason is always lifting up more people alongside my own journey. Like if I look at my core soul's mission of what I do, it is allowing other females and males to love themselves, to enjoy their life, and to have a fulfilling life. So every decision I make is in line with that. So I'll go, okay, amazing. Is that going to do that mission, or is that for my ego? And I'm like, no, okay, I can offer so much information and guidance from my own learnings in that environment. So I will gift these to whatever environment that I'm doing in, whether it be online, whether it be, in a talk, whether it's on a podcast for someone else. So I will always look at it, and I do say no to a lot because I'm like, you know what, that probably isn't a great use of my time. And other people don't like that. So it's about actually going, I'm safe to say no because that doesn't quite feel aligned. It doesn't mean it's a no forever, but it doesn't feel quite aligned in this moment. So then I will anchor back into, okay, what is my core mission again? And that is how I make all of my business decisions. So I know that I'm running from a place of authenticity. I'm using my light to make my decisions and not my ego. I love my ego, but again, it has... and it's created me to be able to create the platforms that I do for the work that I now do. So, I deeply honor all versions of it, but it does, it can unstick you at some times. So another one that I wanted to talk of, which I sort of talked on before, was actually the loss of who you used to be. So when I was talking about identities and things like that, but the loss of who we are at every stage, we deeply love every version of it. We just don't honor it enough to fall deeply in love with ourselves. So it's really hard to look back on some of the parts of my life and I'm like, oh, I miss her. She was really this and she was really that. And some of those things don't align with my life now. So they don't actually action in my everyday living. So it's okay to also look back on the versions of yourself and be like, she was really great, or I really missed that part of myself, but now I can't do it because obviously I've done so much work to be able to step past that. Another one I was going to bring up is going through the subtraction. So your team or the universe or the lessons that we have in life, they don't crush you to destroy you. So what I mean by that is, again, it is building our boundaries. It is building our capacity to hold more, to be more, to stand further and not then go back into our old versioning or our old programming of ourselves because we don't feel safe to be the version. So generally when someone is in a loop and there's a lot of lessons coming, or you feel victimized, or you feel like you're targeted all the time, there's generally learnings and lessons that you need to go in with yourself. And those can be things like ego, checking where you're at in terms of it, but also that deeper level of like, what is your purpose? Are you in your truth? And then like anchoring in more of that energy and that power to be like, no, I am unshakable in the work that I'm doing. And I'm honored to be doing the work that I'm doing, and it feels right because your own internal compass is going to know more than what anyone else is saying around you, about you, all of those sorts of things. So again, making sure that you anchor in your own beliefs, your own your own feelings of right. So again, what you are doing might not look right to someone else who doesn't understand it, but it doesn't mean that you have to change it or water it down or dilute your own message to make it fit to someone that isn't ready to receive the message. So also, it's allowing the world, universe, whatever, however you work with your higher self or your higher consciousness, it is about refining you, stretching you, and maturing your roots and seasons of learning. So when these seasons come, they can be really polarizing. They can be quite difficult. They can be quite, you feel betrayed. There's like different elements of all these sorts of things that you're pushing through. But they're not here to break you. It's not here to shred you down. It's just that test to be like, are you honoring yourself? Are you holding your boundaries? Are you going to allow people to show up the way that you show up? Are you, I don't talk to myself overly negative anymore. I used to a lot, especially with ADHD or neurodiverse or whatever we call it these days. We don't use labels here, but we are more harder on ourselves. We have a bigger sense of rejection, which is why we tend to allow people to stay at arm's distance. But doing the work I do, unfortunately, I can't do that. I'm deeply committed to people in my space and my field, people that I do work with. It needs to feel really aligned and beautiful. So again, it's about making sure in these seasons that you are not swayed from what you are doing. It doesn't need to make sense to everyone. Not everyone needs to understand it, but it is your truth. And if it is helping you, it is such an important message to share for other people. So I don't get up and think that I'm some spiritual guru, because I'm not. What I am is I have worked very, very hard at learning a different way from what I was taught as a child, or what society teaches us as normal behavior. So to some people, they're like, oh, that's left field, not eating chemicals, or, a lot of the beliefs now with clean water, tap water, all these things. I'm like, I'm not doing all this energetic spiritual work and then I'm going to flood my body with chemicals and things because the TV or the government tells me it's fine. Now, those are my beliefs. I don't push those on to anyone else, but that is a me thing. So again, people will judge you for that from their lack of understanding. So instead of me being like trying to defend it, I just deeply honor that isn't their journey, and that's totally fine. But I'm not going to put anything in my body that I don't feel comfortable with. So again, it's about me holding my truth without preaching too much. I mean, often I will do the odd thing like, oh, you should do this or you should do that, just because I can't quite help myself. I also don't have a filter. But generally, if that's not received, it's about then going, okay, well, this is their journey. It's not my journey. So I will step back from that. But then I'm allowed to feel confident in the decisions that I make for myself, my family, my community, about educating on certain things that for many, many years we've been told are fine, that I don't believe are any benefit to our body. I see what the inflammation, I think we're starting to get a lot more education around the chemicals in our skin and the food that we're having. So it's just about really educating yourself, but no judgment either. As a neurodiverse family, dopamine is something that we are constantly chasing. So we don't have devices in our house. Now, that doesn't mean I look at a family with devices and go, what are you thinking? But I know that how my children's brain works. I know how my own brain works, that I'm like, well, actually, I'm going to remove that so that we can get dopamine from a sunrise and from getting up in the morning and digging holes and chasing rainbows and going hiking and eating good food and spending time with family. Like, that is the dopamine which is going to create long-term slow release dopamine for brains that are searching for it very quickly. And unfortunately, there's great sides of social media and there's great sides of devices and technology. Things like being able to record podcasts now is so easy and be able to get your message out. So I'm never against what it's bringing into our world. What I am is I control it in terms of how our brains work, what is the best solution for our home. We still have Netflix, so we will watch a movie maybe once a week, all tucked up on a couch with some beautiful food, wrapped in blankets. And it's honestly one of my favorite bits of my week. But my boys wouldn't sit around and do it, and they know not to ask because they're building Lego or they're using their brains and things like that. They're using their hands. So again, it is just a journey that is for you, that is right for you. There is no judgment, there's no pedestal, and everybody can operate at the level that they feel comfortable, because I always realize now, if people are at a different level and they feel completely safe there and they're not scratching for more, or they don't have this yearning underneath, like, there's something wrong with my body, I'm always inflamed, I'm always bloated, I'm always run down, I'm sick, I feel anxious, I feel depressed. For me, those are key signs with the work that I do, that you are out of alignment, that you are flooding your body with toxins, that your community isn't serving you, that you have outgrown your identity. Those, for me, are those big, deep feeling emotions that we don't need to carry. So for me, I used to have pretty crippling anxiety. And I said to a friend when we went to the beach the other day, I said, oh, gosh, I've always been anxious. And she hasn't known me that long, maybe a couple of years. And she was like, you are the least anxious person. And then we walked back to my car. Both my car doors are open. They'd been open for like 5 hours at the beach. My wallet's on the front seat. We get back to my house. All my doors are open, but it's about, I didn't realize how far I'd come and how peaceful and relaxed my life is now, whereas I used to be more strung out. So for me, I did it for the reasons at the start that I was dysregulated. I was nervous. I was a yelling mum. I was ragey. I was always on the edge of something. And I was like, I didn't want to be that anymore. I didn't want to show up and show that my children that being disconnected or not connecting with them or raging at them or yelling at them was the way that I wanted to raise them. So it's all, this thing was an inside journey for me. And I know that a lot of the clients that I work with have a lot of those same feelings or have felt this disconnect within themselves. So it's such a safe space of no judgment, because when I was that version of myself, that was the only version I knew. I didn't think there was another version over the hill waiting. So yeah, it's about really just looking at your life. And I always say, like online, like auditing what lights you up, what drains you, what food makes you feel good. If you are, feeling really sluggish after certain social events or work environments, those are the things that then you can start to address and go, how can I make my life more fun? How can I find more joy? How can I wake up in the morning and be like, shit, I love my life? Because now, yes, I have days where I struggle. I'm human. I am also get a dysregulated mind sometimes with my ADHD, especially if I'm burning out or I'm doing a lot of work, then there comes a bit of a crash afterwards. So in that time, I have to gift myself rest, renewal. I have to, give myself extra kindness and space through that time. But anxiety was one of the biggest things, feeling low. I was always bloated. I had a cold like every 3 weeks, and I just put it down to being normal. Now, I very rarely, very rarely ever sick. I don't feel anxious. Yes, I get upset sometimes because I allow my emotions to come to the surface now, but I don't have these big dark feelings or these deep programming that holds me back from being the lightest version of myself. And, in spirituality at the moment, there are so many regurgitated words, I think, and sometimes I use some of them because obviously we're in a world where it has to make sense. I can't probably talk about the things that I talk about with my team because not everyone's going to understand it. And I know that part of my job is to be able to guide people to a lighter way of living. Now, they can either say, hey, that resonates with me, or hey, that doesn't resonate with me. Again, as my mentor Jack says, you don't give someone a gift and follow them home to ask if they like it. So all of the work that I do, I'm like, here is your gift from your team, from your higher consciousness. I hope you activate it and you start finding that connection and that support yourself. But I gift that to them because I now deeply understand that everybody's journey is individual, and mine is a lead by example role where I can support at all the stages, because I think this stage here is really hard and it can be really lonely. And, I guess the reason that this podcast came to fruition is because I wish there was language for it when I was going through it. I was very much just puddling along and I wouldn't see the lessons. So I sort of think now, if someone had given me that guidance through that period, I could have transmuted it a lot easier. I could have sat in it a lot or processed it a lot faster. I would have taken a lot of the emotion and the hurt out of it that I carried myself. So that is, I guess, why Once You Know came, because as I say, and as I know, you can't go back to your old identity, your old version. She doesn't exist. He doesn't exist anymore. You are now the newer version of you. We are sitting in a higher frequency world where people can choose whichever dimension they want to sit at. But for me, I know that I've always got to keep my vibration high, which keeps my health. It keeps me vital and all the things going. It gives me more energy. I get replenished all the time. And that is the way I want to live now. So I can't unknow what I know. And I feel such a disservice not being able to provide that same support for people, because I almost used to roll my eyes a little bit at the woo-woo, or as it went too far. We had a gorgeous friend, he lives overseas now, but he was talking about galactics and doing all the things. And I remember thinking, no judgment, but whoa, that was really okay, But again, it was mocked, it was laughed, it was all those sorts of things. But now I'm very selective about what I talk about. So I do keep it quite surface, but I wanted to create a space where we could go deeper. And I'm going to open up opportunities to be able to flick me questions or topics that you would love to have covered, because I think it's really important that everybody gets a buy-in, and you can be like, hey, I'm feeling this. What does that mean? As opposed to just a generic energy thing. It's saying, hey, I'm feeling isolated and everything's been taken away from my life. Well, for me, I know that they're clearing space for something different, for a more aligned version of you, for a more aligned community, for a more aligned purpose. So again, it's just about sitting in that energy and understanding it, taking away all the personal the personal emotions that come with it, and trying to understand that it is just realignment, it is just rediversion, it is just allowing you to go back into yourself, love yourself a little bit more. And again, I've been really blessed in my life to have a mentor that saw my light and is always there, reminding me as well. And, I've always said to her, I'm so honored now that I'm that version for so many incredible women and men on this journey as well. So my idea is just keep being vulnerable, keep sharing my truth, keep allowing the questions to come and the understanding to come, and we can learn it together and understand it and unpack it, and create a different way of being, deeper relationships. I don't want surface level anything. I don't want surface level relationships. I don't want surface level friendships. I want to be all in, safe, vulnerable, my whole authentic self, and loved exactly for the version that I am. But it's hard because not everyone understands it. So there's all these layers. So anyway, I'm going to leave you with it today, but that was a really big one that had come through for me, a really deeply personal one today. So I thought I would jump on because I know it will resonate with so many people, and that we love all the parts of our journey and all the people in it, and we just got to keep understanding that those things are us. Those lessons are ours. It's either to anchor in deeper or look at a general pattern around you and go, okay, how can I show up different? How can this be different? But generally it is going, okay, are you going to be swayed, or are you going to stand into your power a little bit more, and create the beautiful life that you are creating? So there is so much magic in it, but yes, I see you, I feel you, I've been you. There is that deep, dark, solitary, growing pains that do come with this beautiful journey. But as I always say to everyone, keep going, because on the other side, it just gets lighter and lighter. And if I look back, especially over the 5 years of my deep growth, every time I thought, oh, that was really hard, I know just afterwards, it's almost like the rainbow comes out, the realignment happens, and life is just even more magic than what you can imagine. So yeah, so I'll leave it with you. Any questions, drop me a DM. Any questions that you want answered, hit me up on Amy Louise Shaw on Instagram. You can chuck me a DM and just put some wee question tips in there, and then I will cover them on the next coming up. So anyway, I deeply honour that you joined me today for this beautiful podcast, and I hope you got something from it.
Thank you for being here for the episode of Once You Know. If this conversation resonated with you, share it with someone who is on their own healing journey. And if you're ready to go deeper, you can find all the ways to work with me in the links below. Remember, once you know, and there's no going back, only deeper alignment.